So, how y'all doing? Sigmonger. I'm gonna do a comparison between a few of the more common karambits you're seeing pop up on the market now. Spyderco Karahawk, a Fox 479, and a Cold Steel Tiger Claw, right? First one up, this is a Spyderco Karahawk, right? It's got a blade length of 2.35 inches, cutting edge of 2 inches, it's 3.8 ounces, 6.5 inches overall. MSRP at 289, you're gonna wind up paying like a buck 75, buck 80 for it, right? Badass knife, very compact, very slim, very easily maneuverable, very smooth on this particular model here. It's very unobtrusive in your pocket, easily accessible. It's great with the ring. Obviously got the Emerson Wave. That's one consistent feature through all of the knives that are going to be here today are this Emerson Wave feature. I'm going to get into how they all work. Next one up is the Fox. This is a Fox 479. It's got a blade length of 3.25 inches. These are all my measurements, by the way. Cutting edge of 3 inches. Weight is 4.6 ounces. Overall length is 8.5 inches. MSRP of 150. You're going to wind up paying like 130, 140 for it. And 690 CO. Again, really sick ass knife. I just hate the logos. And then into the beast. This is a Cold Steel Tiger Claw. It's got a blade length of 3.25 inches, cutting edge of 3 inches, weight of 5 ounces, overall length of 9.1 inches, MSRP of $200. You're gonna wind up paying like $200 for it, or you're gonna wind up paying like $120 for it. MSRP of $200. Look at the size comparison in that. You hear the specs. The specs are really close. The knives aren't. Spyderco is definitely going to be the easier to carry. It's much thinner in comparison to all of them. The Fox here is actually going to be the thickest in profile. It's definitely got it's a little bit more felt in the pocket is when moving around. Actually, even more so than this one here. The Cold Steel being so thin, you can see it's actually comparable in thickness to the Spyderco, which is impressive because this thing is just thin. All of the blade lengths are sub 3.5 inches, right next to 3 inches, and this is the box right here for the Tiger Claw, excuse me. It says 3-inch blade length. That is not accurate. That is not a 3-inch blade. Almost any way you measure it besides directly from the spine outward, and then you get a 3-inch measurement. But in any court of law, that's never going to hold up. So they all carry very well in your pocket. They've all got the Emerson Wave feature. Now, the Emerson Wave has, this is an excellent spread right here on an example of the different versions you will all see. You know what I mean? This one isn't patented. This isn't actually an Emerson Wave. Both of these here feature are actually patented. Sorry about that. I want to get it in frame. Are actually Emerson patents. They both have a patent. They both have a registered number on them. This one definitely works the best. I'll demonstrate that in a little bit. And for capability, these are obviously defensive knives, right? And one of the benefits of a karambit is being able to get it out of your pocket. Well, the Emerson Wave in the karambit is that having the ring and being able to deploy it out of your pocket very quickly and have it in your hand, have the capability of any sort of thrusting motion you need to do, which is, it's a very brutal knife just in its just in the design of that itself. But and you'll notice here that the pocket clips are on the are on the actual display side for these two knives here. And the reason for this is I use these two knives. If I'm going to pull them out of my pocket, I am going to have them in a reverse grip. This is a traditional karambit grip. It works the best, right? I really like this. And so I deploy it out of my pocket. It snags open. I grab it. Blades ready to go. Both the Fox and the Spyderco here, both the same thing. I'll show you again. I'll show you that in a minute. You notice the Cold Steel here isn't like that, and it's because I don't actually use the wave feature on this one. I'll get into why that is. But with that negative, right, you have the negative as far as it's not going to be as good of waving out of your pocket, but the capability of this knife here is ridiculous. You're stuck with one grip with either of these knives if you're going to go either traditional grip or a hammer grip, traditional forward grip. But it's limited on reach. You're limited on reach, especially in the reverse grip. That's not the case with this cold steel. This cold steel here, if you're actually utilizing the ring, you can see how it's almost a double section handle, right? There's two different separate holds that you can have on this handle. And with it in a reverse grip, it almost compensates to the same level as I would get holding it out like this in a traditional hammer grip. So it's definitely the overall reach goes to the cold steel. As far as deployment out of your pocket, we'll get into that one in a little bit. The comfortable in the hand, I would actually have to give to the Fox. The overall ergonomics of the Fox, being how it is a little bit thicker, it feels your hand more. It feels better in your hand. You can get a better purchase on it. It feels more stable. A little bit more confidence in this. It feels better to give a really good squeeze to it. It doesn't quite bite into my hand nearly as hard. And if I was going to be using this as a utility knife, that isn't, another really good application. It just feels a little bit better in my hand if you're ever going to be doing any really hard cutting with a karambit. I don't think too many people are actually going to be doing that. The steels here, the blade steels are all actually really decent steel. The Spyderco here is a VG10, which is definitely stain resistant, holds an edge for a good period of time. It's a very famous steel. It's gaining in popularity even still now. The N690 CO for the Fox, however, is a newer steel on the market, but it's still a very nice steel. It's actually comparable to the VG10 and the Spyderco. Some people will tell you it's a little bit better performer. Some people will tell you it's a little bit worse for performer, but it's generally comparable to the VG10. The XHP, this is a CTS Xhp, and this is most comparable to like a D2. It would be considered like a stain resistant D2 or a really hard 440C type steel. And so it gives you that, they're all decent steels, but the capability of the XHP is probably going to hold an edge for a little bit longer, but it's not going to have as much toughness. And in that come to the actual blade grind, the overall construction of the knives, and how aggressive the actual swoop is on the knife is definitely less on the Spyderco. You can see here when I hold this out, the swoop on the edge definitely comes out, but it doesn't come out to like a 90-degree angle. It's still sitting almost level with my hand, which is still going to scoop up material. It's still going to make an excellent swoop cut. You're a slash cut. You're still going to penetrate a lot of material, but it's still more in line. You get down to the Fox. The Fox is a little bit more curved in. When I hold this one out, you notice that angle, the tip angle, is pointed just a little bit further in. It's just a little bit further out. So any sort of penetrating motion, any sort of thrust cuts, or any sort of stabbing motion that I'm going to do with this, I'm actually going to have to angle the blade in to get any sort of proper penetration. Unlike with the Spyderco. The Spyderco, you can still get a proper downward thrust, and it's going to penetrate into material because that tip is just a little bit further out. But it's not going to gather material quite as well. It's not going to hold on to material quite as well. You're not going to be able to use it as a hook. You're not going to be able to actually hook somebody's collarbone and guide them around as well as you would with something like the Fox. Because, again, gruesome as a lot of that is. Again, you come to the cold steel. The cold steel is almost perfectly straight out. You can see the cutting edge is almost perfectly straight out, but it's got such a deep swell there. It's such a prominent hook, right, that you still have a very flat edge. So any sort of penetrating thrust, you're actually going to have to cut this one back all the way to here to actually get any sort of penetrating thrust. So this one is almost negligible on the stabbing capability in a reverse grip. You're really kind of limited to that thrusting capability. But in that thrusting capability, this thing is ridiculous because the blade grind that it has is kind of reminiscent of like a rip-off Emerson, right? You can see it's actually only ground on one side. So the blade itself comes to a very thin edge, very thin right behind that cutting edge. I actually probably need to strop it up. I've been beating it up on some boxes recently. but it's very thin, it's very capable, very slicey edge, right? So it's not going to be the best for utility work. It's going to have a little bit more risk of chipping or breaking, but you're never going to be pounding through any wood with this. This is a little bit thicker behind the cutting edge. Here, you can see that it's come down, it's in a saber grind like the Spyderco here, comes down to just a little bit thicker behind the actual cutting edge. I did break the tip on this one and I refurbished that, fixed the tip. So that's not the original profile for the actual tip. It was just a little bit longer, came out just a little bit further. I broke maybe 1/8 of an inch off of it, but you can see that cutting profile there. Again, nice cutting profile. I just hate the coating and I hate the Karambit. Why is that on there? The Spyderco, excellent grind. It's got a flat grind on the blade, and it definitely comes out to a nice tip. It's still got a decently reinforced tip, even though it comes out all the way down to that very thin cutting edge right behind the blade. Definitely very nice. Spyderco obviously always finishes their blades nice. Now I want to get into the actual Emerson wave, the actual deployment of the knife itself in your pocket. For that, I'm going to have to switch camera angles. We'll get back. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just try to demonstrate pulling them out of my pocket in different angles, different ways that you might actually try to deploy the Emerson wave. You can see that I've got this one here set up for a reverse grip. This first one up is the Fox 479. And when I would deploy this one, what I would do is just pull it a little bit forward and actually pull it out of my pocket. See, I can't do it there. I have to do it a little bit quicker. But it works. It's very reliable. It actually works pretty much every time. But it does require that little bit of motion. It does require me to pull this knife sideways and pull it forward as I do that, so it actually engages that hook. Otherwise, if I just pull it out, it doesn't work. It's not going to work like that. Pulling it in, if it's in the pocket like this, if I'm holding it in the other direction, I can still pull it out and it deploys relatively consistently like that. So this one works in multiple grips. However, you do have to angle it forward to get that deployment. You can see that it just doesn't work unless I push forward. Even moving it sideways, if I still move it sideways, or if I still do this and pull it straight up, it still deploys the blade. So it's a decent hook, decent engagement on that one, relatively reliable. I wouldn't trust this fully for defensive purpose, but it does work. Next one up I want to go for, let's go with the Cold Steel. It's the Cold Steel Tiger Claw, right? This one here, this one doesn't work, okay? I can angle it that way. I can angle it up. I'm going to give it an angles and a forward pull. Slammed it out. That time it worked. What's going on is there's so much of this blade coming forward. There's so much of this protruding forward that when I actually put it in my pocket, or when I angle it to pull it out of my pocket so that it actually engages that wave feature itself, what it holds, you know what I mean? It's got a hooking feature. It hooks onto my actual pocket there. So when it slides off, it doesn't want to engage my pocket fully. It doesn't want to get out there. You can see what I'm doing to my pocket for you guys, beating the hell out of it. So this is, it works, but it's just not quite sufficient. The way that I've actually been using this, you can notice, is it's sitting like this, not in a reverse grip. I pull this one out, open it up like that, and this thing is intimidating enough. It's a big, badass beast, so I really think that's not too much of a problem. The Spyderco here has a traditional Emerson wave. It's much more reminiscent of what you see on a lot of the Spydercos, on a lot of the knives. It's just, it looks actually more like a wave. I think it's more of a traditional design, and it is definitely the most reliable of the three. In any way that I can pull this out, you see there, what I did was the same thing with the Fox. Angled it forward a little bit and pulled it out. But it actually, pulling it out just like this, in a straight upwards motion, I didn't pull it out, I didn't move it at all. All I did was pull it directly up, and due to the actual angle of that, due to the way that it's designed, pulling it up will still, you see that? Just pulling it straight up will still engage, not reliably, but it will still engage that little hook, right? So you don't actually have to angle it nearly as far forward to engage the actual wave. It's the same thing in that position as well as in reverse. You can just imagine it hooks very easily, very reliably, especially if you have that rivet on the back or on the side of your pocket if you're wearing jeans. So this is definitely the most reliable one out of the three. They all kind of work, the Cold Steel being so-so, Fox being in the middle. So I would definitely give the best reliability to the Spyderco, number 2 to the Fox, number 3 to the cold steel. Cold steel definitely takes it in intimidation factor and overall capability as far as defensive purpose, except for the deployment. Fox, I think, takes it in comfortableness, actually using it for a utility factor, and the Spyderco takes it in able to be carried. It's smaller, it's very compact, it's very lightweight, it's very thin, it's very easy to hide. And again, I think the Spyderco takes it on the ring too. It's just a more comfortable grip. But that's it. Y'all have a good one.